On the day of childbirth, my husband and his mother bribed the midwife. They planned that the moment I gave birth to a son, they would keep the child and kill me, gaining my dowry and welcoming his barren childhood sweetheart into the household as his wife. 3 goals achieved with one stroke. But they did not know that I had also bribed the servant closest to him. Once the son was born, in his overjoyed drunkenness, he would stumble into the lake and drown, perfectly fulfilling the saying, "Leave the child, remove the father." After all, who wouldn't wish to live as the noble mistress of a marquis household, with a son and boundless wealth, except that the marquis himself would be dead? In the 2nd year of my marriage into the Marquis of Yungan's household, I became pregnant. Congratulations, madam. Congratulations, my lord. The lady is with child. At the physician's words, joy filled the room. The old madam, who had never liked me, suddenly held my hand with a bright smile. I told you, Suayu is a blessed one, you can tell she's made for motherhood. From now on, you need not do anything else, just give me a plump grandson. Even Qi Zhao, who had always found me vulgar and greedy, smiled faintly. Suayu, you've worked hard. I smiled softly, lowering my head to touch my belly. Physician, can you tell if it's a boy or a girl? The physician hesitated. It's still early to tell. But judging by madam's pallor, the dark circles beneath your eyes, your poor appetite and sleeplessness, I'd say 8 or 9 chances out of 10 it's a boy. The first 3 months are crucial, you must take care and rest well. I thanked the physician and told my maid Jinzhou to reward him with silver. Then I turned gently toward Qi Zhao. Husband, we're finally having a son. Perhaps from now on, I won't be able to serve you well. Should I find a concubine for you? Qi Zhao froze, but quickly smiled again, taking my hand. My lady is generous indeed, but since I've married you, I will keep my word, no concubines. Just focus on your health and the child. I lowered my gaze, hiding the mocking smile at the corner of my lips. He wasn't keeping his word for me, only for fear that taking another woman would upset the beloved cousin he truly cared for. That night, Qi Zhao was overjoyed and stayed in my chambers. At midnight, a servant knocked on the door. My lord, there's been an incident in the Western District. You're needed immediately. In the past, he would have left without hesitation. But this time, it was different. Before he could rise, I took his robe and handed it to him with a tender smile. My lord, go quickly. The case is important. Our child and I will be waiting for you at home. The word our child I emphasized deliberately. A flicker of guilt passed through his eyes. Just as he was about to rise. Ah! I suddenly clutched my belly, letting out a low cry of pain, trying hard to steady my breathing. His brows furrowed instantly. His hand, halfway to taking his robe, froze midair before shifting to support me instead. Your stomach hurts. I'll fetch the physician. This was his first child, he dared not risk anything going wrong. I shook my head lightly, propping myself on the bed's edge, my face a little pale. It's nothing, just a small discomfort. My lord, the case is more important. Jinzhou has already gone to summon the physician, he'll be here any moment. Qi Zhao gazed at me, emotions flickering across his face. After a long silence, he sat down beside me and said, It isn't that urgent. I'll go tomorrow. Seeing my color return slightly, he added, Now that you're with child, I'll stay home for a while, to take care of you properly. I nodded with a gentle smile, leaning against him, the perfect picture of a pampered wife too stunned by her own fortune. The next day, I used the same excuse to keep Qi Zhao for lunch before letting him go. Watching his figure hurrying off to handle the so-called case, I couldn't help but smile faintly. I only pretended to be naive, uncalculating, yet he truly thought me a fool. When Qi Zhao was still the heir, he had a cousin he adored deeply, Lin Yuanbai, the second daughter of the Earl's household. They were childhood sweethearts, perfectly matched in rank and status. Years ago, on an outing beyond the city, they were ambushed by bandits. During the skirmish, Lin Yuanbai shielded him from an arrow. It struck her abdomen, leaving her barren for life. In noble families of merit, bloodline continuation was paramount. A woman who could not bear children could never become the wife of a marquis, especially since Qi Zhao was the sole heir of Yong'an Marquisate. Thus, Lin Yuanbai could only watch helplessly as Qi Zhao married me. Yet, though they could not be together openly, they continued to meet in secret. And the phrase the servant used, a case in the Western District, was their code for those illicit rendezvous. Jinzhou watched Qi Zhao's departing back, barely containing her excitement. "Madam, this is the first time the Marquis has stayed this long. Now that you're with child, he'll surely visit often, our happy days have finally arrived." I looked at her without replying. The silly girl was dreaming. This child was no blessing, he was a death warrant. Once I bore a son, Qi Zhao would have me killed and bring Lin Yuanbai into the household. My name is Suayu, daughter of a wealthy merchant from the Jianghuai region. Ordinarily, with my background, I could never have married into a marquis household. But that year, a great scandal shook the capital. The emperor discovered that the Ministry of Revenue had embezzled over 4 million taels of silver, accumulated over years of corruption by noble families. Furious, he decreed that within 6 months, all involved must repay the stolen sums, or be stripped of title. The Marquis of Yong'an was among those named, owing 120,000 taels. But the fortune had long been squandered. No matter how they schemed, they could scrape together only 10,000. And so someone came up with a solution: marriage. Wasn't Jianghuai the land of wealthy merchants? All they needed was to choose a rich family, secure a dowry to patch the deficit, and later, once the crisis passed, dispose of the unwanted bride and remarry. Perfectly simple. Among the 3 richest merchants in Jianghuai, my family ranked third. Originally, this marriage proposal would not have reached us, but the 2 wealthier families ahead of us refused to send their daughters away, especially to the capital. After all, years ago, the wealthiest merchant had married his daughter into the Duke of Ronggua's household. Within 3 years, she was dead, murdered. Her fortune seized, her family ruined under false accusations. With that bloody precedent, every merchant in Jianghuai avoided the marquisate proposal as though it were plague. Only I, stepping into the main hall and seeing Qi Zhao come to propose, had eyes that lit up. Before my father could refuse, I stepped forward and said firmly, "Father, your daughter is willing to marry into the Marquis household." The betrothal was settled on the spot. Later, my father pulled me aside, trembling with anger, his mustache quivering. "Suayu, you're the most capable of all my children. I intended to entrust the whole business to you. Why would you throw yourself into that cursed Marquis household?" I smiled. "So what if it's a Marquis household? That's the stepping stone I've chosen." Many from the capital came to Jianghuai seeking rich in-laws to fill their coffers. But among them, only this Marquisate of Yong'an suited my plans best. The old Marquis was nearing death, and Qi Zhao, being the sole male heir of the entire clan, was soon to inherit the title. Once I married into that household, sooner or later, I would become the Marchioness of Yong'an. My father thought this matter could be settled simply by declining the proposal and returning to our peaceful trade. I looked at him and spoke slowly. "When these noble families recover, when they run out of money again, who do you think they'll come after next? In the order of the empire, scholars, farmers, artisans, merchants, we are last. If we have only wealth but no power to defend it, won't we become fat lambs waiting to be slaughtered? Better that I marry into the Marquisate, secure the position of Marchioness, and make it a shield for our family." Father sighed helplessly. "That Marquis household is filled with hidden Daeans and crouching tigers. Do you really think they'll let a merchant's daughter rule as mistress? I've already had it investigated. Qi Zhao loves the second young lady of the Earl's residence. If you marry him, I fear." I gripped his hand, lips curving into a confident smile. "Just watch, father. The seat of the Marquis's chief lady, I will sit on it firmly." 3 months later, During the 80th birthday celebration of the Dowager Marchioness of the Duke of State's residence, I represented the Marquis household and brought a painting, The Pine of 10,000 Years, personally painted by the renowned scholar Gu Yuji. No sooner had I sat down than a mocking laugh drifted from across the table. A mere merchant's daughter possessing an original work of Master Gu. Surely that's a forgery bought from a market stall. I lifted my gaze. The speaker, sitting diagonally opposite, was a young woman covering her mouth as she laughed with Lin Yuanbai. It was Hua Shuer, her closest companion. So, today she had come on Lin Yuanbai's behalf, to humiliate me publicly. I didn't get angry. Instead, I smiled pleasantly and replied. Since Miss Hua is so certain this painting is fake, perhaps you could enlighten us, who copied it, which original it was based on, and from which market I purchased it. She hadn't expected me to strike back. For a moment, she faltered. I've never bought a painting myself. How would I know such things? I let the smile fade, my tone sharpening. Then if you cannot answer, on what grounds do you insist this work isn't genuine, but a forgery I bought? Her composure crumbled. Her hands twisted nervously in her lap, and she glanced helplessly toward Lin Yuanbai for rescue. But Lin Yuanbai only feigned ignorance, leaving her floundering. Master Gu only sells to those of high standing. You're just a lowly merchant's daughter. How could you possibly? What about me is unworthy? I cut her off coldly. My father's trading houses span the entire realm. He's fond of travel and has long associated with Master Gu, who gifted him this painting as a token of friendship. It's presented today as a birthday offering. What about that is improper? You're lying. Hua Shuer blurted, flustered. Master Gu would never lower himself to befriend common merchants. Enough. A stern voice interrupted. It was the old matron beside the Dowager Marchioness. Mind your tongue. This is the Marchioness of Yong'an you're addressing, not some merchant's daughter you can insult as you please. Hua Shuer's face turned scarlet. She cast a venomous glare at me, then at Lin Yuanbai, before sitting down in humiliation, her eyes shimmering with tears. I rose and bowed respectfully toward the Dowager Marchioness, seated at the head of the hall. The old lady had once shared a fleeting acquaintance with Master Gu in her youth. One glance from her was enough to know whether the painting was genuine. Only Hua Shuer, foolish and easily manipulated, had allowed herself to be used as Lin Yuanbai's pawn. And Lin Yuanbai, she was never one to wait patiently. I'd only hinted to Qi Jiao that the painting might be fake, and she had immediately seized the chance to tarnish my name. It seemed that the night I'd kept Qi Jiao back after learning of my pregnancy had already made her feel threatened. When the banquet ended, I was about to leave when Lin Yuanbai appeared before me. Or rather, she had followed me out. Her gaze was fixed on my belly, filled with poisonous envy. Through gritted teeth, she hissed. Cousin sister is truly blessed, so quick to conceive. But childbirth is like stepping through the gates of hell. I wonder if cousin sister has the fortune to survive it, and live long enough to raise the child. Her words dripped venom, a curse wishing me death on the birthing bed. I stopped walking and turned to her, my lips curving faintly, half smile, half sneer. No need for cousin to worry. With 10,000 taels in dowry, I can afford the best physicians and midwives. Bearing and raising a child won't be too difficult. But cousin, if you keep waiting like this, you'll soon be an old maid. At this rate, you might only become someone's second wife. My words were a blade straight to her heart. Lin Yuanbai's eyes blazed with fury, but then, as if recalling something, her face shifted into smug satisfaction. That's still better than you, cousin sister. Married, yet unloved. Your husband finds pleasure elsewhere every day. I may not be wed, but at least the one I love truly cares for me, keeps me in his heart. I raised a brow. A confession, was it? Then I saw no reason to be polite. Cousin is right. The man in your heart does love you deeply, he even risks sneaking off to meet you in secret. Surely he doesn't mind that you're barren, though, tell me, after all this time, why hasn't he proposed to marry you yet? That struck her like lightning. Infertility, her greatest shame, the very reason the Marquis household once rejected her. Her entire body trembled with rage before she lunged at me, shrieking. Wretch! Jianzhou moved quickly to block her, but Lin Yuanbai swung her free hand, aiming to slap me again. In that instant, I dropped to a crouch, cradling my belly, and let out a pained cry. Miss Lin, we've no enmity between us, why would you want to harm my child? The outcry immediately drew the attention of those nearby. Lin Yuanbai froze, panic flashing across her face. She was jealous, yes, but she'd never dare harm the unborn heir. No, it's not me. I didn't do anything. As she stammered, unsure whether to advance or retreat, Qi Zhao appeared out of nowhere. Without a word, he scooped me into his arms and strode away. Before leaving, he shot Lin Yuanbai a sharp glare, one that was unmistakably a warning. Naturally, I didn't miss the chance. From over his shoulder, I gave Lin Yuanbai a triumphant look. It made her tremble with fury. After that day, Qi Zhao stopped visiting Lin Yuanbai for a time. He truly wanted a son and would tolerate no risk to this pregnancy. His coldness toward her was a warning, do not touch this child. But to Lin Yuanbai, his restraint looked like betrayal. So when she discovered that Qi Zhao had skipped their anniversary to host my birthday banquet instead, her jealousy finally erupted. She ignored decorum, stormed straight into the Marquis's residence. That day, she deliberately wore the same dress she had worn the day she shielded him from the arrow, pale pink silk, now slightly faded, but still clinging to her slender form. The moment Qi Zhao saw her, she bit her lip, tears sliding down her cheeks, fragile and pitiful, a vision of heartbreak. At my side, Qi Zhao visibly faltered. His hand slipped from my arm, eyes locked on her, dazed, as though, in another heartbeat, he might rush forward and embrace her. The guests, seasoned nobles all, took one look at the three of us and immediately understood. The air turned heavy with tension. A few gossiping ladies began to whisper behind their fans. Pretending not to notice, I smiled gracefully. Cousin, you've come. How rare for you to attend my birthday celebration. Please, have a seat. I ordered a servant to bring an extra chair and personally helped her sit beside us. Qi Zhao snapped out of his trance then, irritation flashing across his face. He shot Lin Yuanbai a warning look, as if blaming her for nearly making a scene in public. 3 rounds of wine later, the extra chair beside me remained empty. Feigning dizziness, I excused myself, saying I was unwell and would retire early. As I passed the artificial rockery in the garden, I heard a faint rustle. Jianzhou heard it too. Assuming it was some careless servants misbehaving, she moved to scold them, until I caught her arm and silently shook my head. Then came the sound of ragged breathing, followed by a soft, tremulous voice. I thought you'd changed, now that you have a child. If not for that arrow I took for you, I could have borne you a child myself. A man's hushed voice answered between shallow breaths, tender and coaxing. No, never. I'll always love only you. But for now, don't provoke Sua Yu. Don't cause trouble. We need that child. I've already bribed the midwife, Qi Zhao's low voice murmured through the leaves. Once she gives birth to a son, all it takes is a pillow over her face, and it'll be done. Jianzhou, crouching beside me, went pale as death. Her eyes widened, both hands flew to her mouth to stifle a gasp, her entire body trembling uncontrollably. Inside, the whispers continued, soft, venomous. But I can't help feeling jealous, Lin Yuanbai said bitterly. Thinking of how you've been cold to me for that wretched merchant girl, it feels like knives cutting into my heart. Foolish girl, Qi Zhao soothed her in a tender tone. What's there to be jealous of? Once she's dead, I'll bring you into the household immediately. The child, our son, will be yours to raise. I didn't listen further. The words were filth, vile, disgusting. Only, his plan sounded eerily familiar. Because I, too, had already bribed his closest servant. Once the child was born, he'd drink himself senseless in joy, slip, and drown in the lake. A perfect ending. Leave the child, remove the father. Still, it seemed my plan needed adjustment. If I didn't die that night, he might never drink to such blissful oblivion. As these thoughts flickered through my mind, I returned to my own quarters, Jean Pavilion, calm as ever. Finding me seated serenely at my writing desk, composing a letter, Jianzhou began pacing back and forth in agitation. Every few steps, she stamped her foot, unable to contain herself. I merely glanced at her once, said nothing, and continued writing until the page was full. Then, raising the paper, I blew gently to dry the ink. Jianzhou, I said softly, tell me, is my handwriting neat today? She rushed forward, gripping my hand anxiously. Miss, how can you still have the heart to write? The young master means to kill you. Her panic made me laugh. What's there to fear, Jianzhou? Blessings and misfortunes are intertwined. Fortune may turn to disaster, disaster may bring fortune. You must have faith in your mistress. But... Shoo. I pressed a finger to my lips. No unlucky talk. Tell me, since you've followed me, have I ever lost in a deal? She lowered her head, thought for a moment, then shook it. Never. Then stop worrying. This is simply another business deal, just a very large one. I folded the letter neatly and placed it in her hands. Find someone fast. Use a swift horse. Make sure this reaches my father's hands personally. Her eyes widened in realization. So, miss, you already had a plan. I smiled and nodded. Relief washed over her face as she ran out clutching the letter, soon disappearing from sight. A gust of wind swept through the courtyard. The ginkgo leaves rustled softly overhead. Then, suddenly, the courtyard darkened, clouds had drifted across the sun. It's going to rain. Qi Zhao's honeyed words behind the rockery had worked perfectly. Lin Yuanbai didn't dare make trouble again. My belly grew heavy, the days creeping closer to labor. To ensure safety, Qi Zhao had summoned 2 midwives, ordering them to stay by my side day and night, so vigilant that even when I relieved myself, they stood guard outside. I smiled sweetly and thanked him, though cold laughter burned in my chest. My husband treats me so well, I told him with feigned gratitude. That very morning, a letter arrived from my father. He wrote that he and mother were on their way to the capital to be with me for the birth. They would arrive in 2 days. Qi Zhao looked startled. Your father and mother are coming. Yes, I said softly. They wish to be here when I give birth, to see their grandchild's face. He fell silent, eyes narrowing, lost in thought. That night, after drinking the medicine prescribed for an easy labor, a searing pain tore through my abdomen. Within moments, I was carried to the birthing chamber. Through the haze of agony, I realized every face around me belonged to Qi Zhao's people, or his mother's. Even Jianzhou was barred from entry. Jianzhou. Jianzhou. I cried out, panic rising. I want Jianzhou with me. Outside, I heard her shouting to be let in, her voice fading as distance swallowed it. Then Qi Zhao's voice came from beyond the door. My lady, don't worry. I and Jianzhou will be waiting for you outside. A fresh wave of pain split through me, I nearly fainted. Madam, focus. The midwife's voice urged out of the chaos. Push. Push harder. I drew in a deep breath, no time to think, only to follow the midwife's instructions, pouring every ounce of strength left in me into the act of giving birth. I didn't know how much time had passed. The pain had long gone beyond pain, dissolving into a numb haze, until suddenly, a baby's cry split through the night. Congratulations, madam. Congratulations, my lord, it's a boy. The midwife's voice rang with delight. My mother-in-law's joy was boundless. Quick, bring the child here, let me see him. Qi Zhao's face lit up. I have a son. But as soon as their excitement met, a silent exchange passed between him, his mother, and the midwife. The woman nodded almost imperceptibly, then turned and went back into the room. Jianzhou, sharp-eyed as ever, saw it. Ignoring decorum, she rushed toward the birthing chamber to protect me, but the attendants guarding the door shoved her down. She scrambled up, panic-stricken. What are you doing? Let me in. I must see my lady. Qi Zhao didn't even look her way. His eyes were fixed on the closed door, waiting for the midwife to come out and announce my death. Moments later, the door opened. The midwife stepped out cradling the newborn, smiling. Heaven blesses us, mother and child are both safe. Qi Zhao's expression froze. His voice, tight with disbelief, rasped through clenched teeth. What did you say? Congratulations, my lord, the midwife repeated calmly. Mother and child are safe. His face drained of color. Without another word, he strode toward the room. Jianzhou wrenched free of the guards and threw herself in front of him. You can't go in. His face darkened, and with one brutal shove he sent her aside and pushed open the door. But heavy footsteps and a booming voice echoed down the corridor before he could enter. My good son-in-law, how is my daughter? Qi Zhao froze, half-stepped from the threshold. Slowly, stiffly, he turned. My parents stood there in full finery, surrounded by attendants bearing gifts. We're not late, are we? My father beamed. Has our grandchild been born yet? The air thickened with awkward tension. It was my mother-in-law who recovered first, forcing a brittle smile to her lips. How perfectly timed. Suayu has just delivered a healthy baby boy, both are safe. She nudged Qi Zhao sharply. He blinked back to life, plastering on a strange smile and taking the child from the midwife's arms. Father-in-law, mother-in-law, you've arrived at just the right moment. He never could have guessed that the letter claiming my parents would reach the capital 2 days later was a ruse, a trap my father and I had planned all along. In truth, they had arrived half a month earlier, waiting only for this night. My mother wasted no time, sweeping into the birthing chamber. I'll see how Suayu is. Jianzhou stumbled after her, tears still streaking her face. I took both their hands, smiling faintly. Don't worry. The attendants in this room are all mine, they wouldn't dare harm me. Jianzhou sniffled. My lady, this was far too dangerous. What if they'd turned on you? They wouldn't. I shook my head, calm as still water. No one can outbid me. That had always been my rule, with enough silver, even ghosts will turn the millstone. There's nothing in this world that money can't solve, only prices too low. By now, every expense in the marquisate came from my dowry. If Qi Zhao could bribe the midwife, then I could bribe her better. Business is simple, the higher offer wins. By midnight, the guests had gone, and Qi Zhao retired to his own quarters. Only then did I dismiss the servants and turn to my father, who had sat by my bed all this time. Father, did you arrange what I asked in my letter? He nodded gravely. All exactly as you instructed. Then, pressing a hand to his chest, he groaned theatrically, this time I've spent half my fortune. I couldn't help but laugh. My father, ever dramatic, ever endearing. Months ago, I had written to him about the empty state treasury and the border wars. I told him to gather the Jianghuai merchants, donate funds in the name of patriotism, and send grain and winter clothing to the front lines. He hadn't understood why, but he obeyed, and did it splendidly. I raised a thumb in approval. General Wu Wei has crushed the enemy. Half a fortune well spent. To guard against any move from the Qi family while I was still weak, my parents decided to stay and care for me themselves. My mother-in-law disliked it, of course. She flaunted her authority as the matriarch of the marquisate, sneering that merchants knew nothing beyond petty calculations and were shamelessly clinging to the nobility. But my parents had thick skins and pretended not to hear. As for Qi Zhao, when Lin Yuanbai learned I'd given birth safely, she flew into hysteria, threatening to hang herself. Whatever he said to her, he managed to coax her back to obedience. I didn't care. For the first time in a long while, I simply enjoyed the warmth of being with my parents again. Too soon, the days passed, and it was time to part ways. As I was leaving, Mother clutched my sleeve tightly, eyes brimming with tears. "Suayu, who knows when we'll meet again?" I embraced her, gently patting her back, and whispered, "Don't worry, Mother. It won't be too long." 2 months later, I was pregnant again. For that, I truly had to thank Lin Yuanbai. If not for her recent quarrels with Qi Zhao, he would never have drunk himself into stupor and stumbled into my chambers night after night. The happiest upon hearing the news was my mother-in-law. Convinced that I was a woman of good fertility, she went to Qi Zhao to discuss letting me bear more children, then bringing Lin Yuanbai into the household as a secondary wife. Jianzhou, having overheard this conversation, rushed to tell me. I was practicing calligraphy then. When she finished speaking, I didn't even lift my head, only said calmly, "Lin Yuanbai won't agree. The top scholar and the runner-up are not the same, and neither are the main wife and the concubine." Sure enough, that evening one of Qi Zhao's servants came secretly to report that Lin Yuanbai had furiously objected, using once again the debt of saving his life to threaten him. As I expected, Qi Zhao yielded. He swore a venomous oath, once I gave birth, he would eliminate me. But he underestimated a woman's jealousy. Convinced that Qi Zhao wouldn't dare lay a hand on me, Lin Yuanbai decided to act on her own. That day, General Wu Wei returned victorious from campaign. The entire capital buzzed with excitement, crowds filled the streets. I was among them. I had planned it carefully, booked a private balcony on the second floor of a tavern to get a better view of the procession. Armored horsemen paraded proudly through the streets when someone below exclaimed, "The second floor has a great view. Let's go up." A surge of people rushed toward the stairs, pushing and shouting. In the chaos, Lin Yuanbai was swept up with the crowd and suddenly collided into me. I lost balance, slammed hard against the railing, pain exploded in my abdomen, and then I plunged straight down from the second floor. Jinzhou's eyes widened in horror. She reached for me but was too late. I shut my eyes, bracing for the agony of impact. But at the last instant, something caught me. The pain I expected never came. When I opened my eyes, I saw a face framed with a rough beard, stern and commanding. General Wu Wei. He started to lower me, but froze when he saw me convulsing in pain, my hands pressed tightly over my stomach. "Hurts, my belly, it hurts." By then, Jianzhou had pushed through the crowd below, trembling as she received me from the general's arms. "Jianzhou, the baby, save my child." Within moments, my face had gone deathly pale. "Is there a physician here?" Jianzhou cried desperately. "Please, someone help. This is the wife of the Marquis of Yong'an, Lady Suayu." The general frowned, turning to her. "Who did you say she is?" Tears streamed down Jinzhou's face. "The Marchioness of Yong'an, Suayu." The world spun before my eyes. I felt arms wrapped tightly around me, heard shouting fading into silence, and then, darkness. When I awoke again, I was back in the Marquis' estate. Jinzhou sat by my bedside, eyes swollen from weeping. She told me that General Wu Wei himself had carried me home. I turned my head slightly. My mother-in-law's expression was filled with disappointment, Qi Zhao's face, unreadable. The physician finished taking my pulse and sighed. "My lady, your body was still weak from the previous childbirth. Conceiving again so soon has taken a toll. This miscarriage has damaged your womb. I'm afraid future pregnancies may be impossible." His words struck me like lightning. For a long time I sat there, numb, then clenched my fists, gripping Qi Zhao's sleeve with trembling rage. "Husband. It was your cousin, Lin Yuanbai. She pushed me. She killed our child." For a moment, guilt flickered in his eyes, but it vanished almost instantly. Suayu, you're delirious. There were so many people that day, how could it have been Yuan Bai? I know you're distraught over the child. I'll have the physician prepare sedatives for you. Rest well. My fingers loosened slowly, one by one. The cold seeped deep into my bones. Of course. I had forgotten. Qi Zhao and Lin Yuanbai had always been on the same side. How could he ever blame her for anything? After all, he already had a son. Losing this one meant nothing to him, it was simply a loss. That night, Qi Zhao came to me carrying a bowl of medicine. Sua Yu, this is the sedative the physician prescribed. It will help restore your health. I looked at him, a bitter smile curling at my lips. Just to restore my health, is that all? He paused, then softened his tone. Drink it, you'll recover soon. I laughed until tears streamed down my face. In the end, no matter how carefully I had plotted, I had only woven a bridal robe for someone else. Qi Zhao helped pull the blanket over me, guilt flickering briefly in his eyes. From now on, he said, I'll stay by your side every day and drink medicine with you. I turned away, refusing to meet his gaze. He thought himself a man of honor, one who kept his word. After the miscarriage, he came every day to drink with me. But the bitterness of each dark bowl burned down my throat, and instead of making me stronger, it dulled my mind. My body weakened, and I began to sleep endlessly, half-conscious, drifting between dreams and haze. When Jinzhou noticed something was wrong and tried to send word to my parents, she was punished and locked inside my quarters. My surviving child was taken away to avoid contagion. A month passed. The mansion outside grew lively again. Painters and carpenters came to work. The courtyard next to mine was being renovated. I asked, why all the noise outside? Jinzhou lowered her head, hand covering her mouth, silent. But I already knew. They're preparing Lin Yuanbai's courtyard, aren't they? She's to be married here soon. Jinzhou shut her eyes and nodded. I sighed and turned over, closing my eyes again. Let them have their triumph a little longer. 2 days later, the doors of my Jinzhou courtyard burst open. A woman in a pale gold-embroidered gown stormed in, Lin Yuanbai. She looked down at me lying weak and pale, then leaned over the bedside, smirking triumphantly. Suayu, so what if you got Qi Zhao? So what if you bore him a child? The one he loves has always been me. You probably don't know, Qi Zhao drugged you just so he could marry me. You won't live much longer. And your child, he'll call me mother soon enough. I met her eyes, my voice laced with mockery. I wasn't wrong that day, you'll only ever be the secondary wife. So you'll marry Qi Zhao. And then what? You still won't be able to bear him a child. Tell me, years from now, when you've failed again and again, do you think Qi Zhao will regret helping you kill the only other son he ever had? Her face twisted in rage. Still spouting venom at death's door. Suayu, save those words for the king of hell. She stood straight, sneering down at me. Look at yourself now, nothing more than a beaten dog. I closed my eyes, voice flat. Then you'd best be careful. A cornered dog still bites. Jinzhou, show our guest out. Not long after Lin Yuanbai left, Qi Zhao entered. Carrying another bowl of that thick, black medicine. Suayu, he said softly, it's time for your medicine. I looked at the bowl, then at him, and asked quietly. Husband, if I drink this one, I won't wake again, will I? He tilted his head, eyes shadowed with something that almost resembled pain, but said nothing. His silence was answer enough. I exhaled slowly. So be it. Then I took the bowl and drained it in one long swallow. Qi Zhao moved as if to stop me, but his lips only parted soundlessly. I laughed. Laughed until tears rolled down my cheeks. Then I lifted the teacup on the table, tapping it lightly against his. Strings break, the moon wanes, dawn mist fades, spring flowers wither. The white hare song ends in sorrowful parting. Take care of yourself, my lord, forget me. The waters of Jin River flow endlessly. Today, Suayu drinks tea in place of wine. To bid her husband farewell forever. Qi Zhao froze for a heartbeat, then tears spilled down his face. Almost without realizing it, he lifted the teacup before him and drank it all in one gulp. Before a single word could leave his lips, he clutched his chest, his face twisting in pain. A moment later, he coughed up a mouthful of blood. There's poison in the tea. His eyes bulged in horror. I rose slowly, the frailty gone from my posture, my gaze cold and razor-sharp. My lord husband, I said evenly, how does it feel to be poisoned by the woman who once lay beside you? Qi Zhao clutched his chest, breath coming in short, shallow gasps. Guards! He rasped. Don't waste your breath. I cut him off. Everyone in Jinta courtyard is mine. No, perhaps I should say, the entire marquisate is mine. Hatred flared in his eyes. Viper. You were pretending all along. I smiled, calm and cruel. Yes. I was pretending. Surprised. He stared at me, trembling, as I stepped closer. You thought you were the master of this house. The servants you bribed, the midwife, your personal attendants, even the physician who treated me, they all answer to me. He collapsed to the floor, writhing, unable to rise. Do you know why I insisted on marrying you, on bearing your child? I asked softly. It wasn't just you coveting the Sua family fortune. I coveted your title. A faint laugh escaped my lips as another thought surfaced. Oh, yes, there's something I forgot to mention. That second pregnancy. It was fake. His eyes widened in shock. I spent a fortune buying a drug that mimics pregnancy, I said, my tone almost conversational. I wanted that miscarriage, so you'd think I was weakened, so you'd dare to make your move. But you weren't ruthless enough. Even something that simple, you couldn't do cleanly. So don't blame me for finishing what you couldn't. Qi Zhao's trembling hand pointed at me, his face contorted with fury, but no words came out. He gasped once more, and then went limp. I looked down at him with disgust and waved my hand. Take him away. That night, witnesses claimed they saw Qi Zhao leaving my courtyard alive, walking calmly out of the marquis's residence. He even stopped by a tavern, drinking merrily, before going to meet Lin Yuanbai as planned. The next morning, when my mother-in-law saw me standing perfectly well in front of her, she nearly dropped to the floor in shock. I smiled gently and bowed. Mother, may you be in good health. The medicine my husband gave me last night worked wonders, I feel entirely recovered. Her face twisted with suspicion. She rushed off to search my chambers and came back trembling with rage. Where is Qi Zhao? I replied calmly. My lord went out last night. He said there was a case to handle. Impossible. She shouted. Where have you hidden him? Just then, a servant burst in, pale and panting. Madam. My lady. Terrible news, the Marquis is dead. Qi Zhao had died during his rendezvous with Lin Yuanbai, dead upon the bed they had prepared outside the estate. The physician's verdict, death by passion. When we arrived, both were still sprawled across the sheets, clothing in disarray. At the sight of her lifeless son, the old madam coughed blood and fainted. Soon after, the earl's household rushed in, servants from both families crowded the courtyard. The moment Lin Yuanbai saw me, her tear-swollen eyes turned feral. She lunged at me, screaming. It was you. You killed him. You murdered Qi Zhao. The countess grabbed her furiously, hissing under her breath. Quiet. Do you think this is glorious to shout about? I dropped beside Qi Zhao's corpse and wailed mournfully. My husband. How can you leave me a widow to raise our children? My cries were so pitiful that even the onlookers felt a pang of sympathy. Lin Yuanbai tried to charge again, but the countess slapped her hard across the face. She froze, then collapsed beside the bed, sobbing hysterically. Her dream had shattered completely. I wept a while longer, until the sobs faded and silence fell. Then I lifted my head, breathing deeply, my expression calm. Now that things have come to this, I said softly, my husband is gone. But he and cousin Yuanbai shared such deep affection, why not let her honor it properly? We could arrange a posthumous marriage, so they may be united in death as they wished in life. What? The countess reacted first, horrified. Impossible. Lin Yuanbai jolted as if struck. He's dead. I won't marry him. It was you killed him. I was drugged the moment I entered that house last night. Qi Zhao, do you see? I whispered, looking down at his lifeless face. This is the woman you loved. She won't even keep vigil for you, yet you gave your life for her. Then, dabbing away my tears, I said mournfully. Cousin, stop twisting truth into lies. I was bedridden in my courtyard last night. The entire street saw Qi Zhao and you enter that house together. Did I force you into it? Lin Yuanbai's hair was in disarray, her whole appearance that of a madwoman. I understand now. She screamed. The letter yesterday, it was you. Qi Zhao, he. Smack. The countess struck her across the face again, voice sharp as a whip. Silence. Then she turned to me, eyes filled with desperate pleading. Marchioness of Yong'an, how do you intend to handle this matter? A man dying in bed with his lover, if word spread, the reputations of both houses would be ruined. The best solution was to seal everything in silence, each family swallowing its own disgrace. At least, that was what the Earl's household believed. And indeed, so did I. In the end, the Earl's residents quietly paid a generous compensation to the Marquisate, then spirited the bodies away under the night. As for me, the heartbroken widow, I personally oversaw Qi Zhao's funeral. But there had been too many witnesses that day. Despite both families' efforts to smother the scandal, the story spread through the capital like wildfire, becoming the year's greatest mockery. Lin Yuanbai could not withstand the gossip, the stares, the whispered ridicule from every corner. In the end, consumed by shame, she took her own life. And I became the most pitiable woman in everyone's eyes. The people spoke of me with sorrow and sympathy. My mother-in-law, who had fainted that day at the scene, never awoke again. Once more, I arranged the funeral with my own hands, which only deepened the public's compassion for me. A widowed mother raising a young heir, managing vast wealth and a great marquisate, naturally, I drew the covetous eyes of many nobles. Yet just as speculation began about whether I would be bullied or usurped, General Wu Wei suddenly stepped forward. He publicly declared me his sworn sister, and my son his adopted godson. From that moment, no one dared touch the marquisate again. Now, my son is the heir apparent, awaiting only his coming of age to inherit the title. At year's end, my parents traveled from Jianghuai to visit. Seeing how orderly and well-run the estate was, father could not stop praising me. Suayu, you are truly my pride. Every step you've taken, perfectly measured. Outside, a knock sounded. General Wu Wei and his wife entered. The general's lady clasped my arm affectionately. My dear sister, we owe you everything. Had you not rallied the merchants to fund the army's grain supply, who knows how that battle would have ended? I smiled, squeezing her hand. It was all thanks to my brother's strength, his sword that guards the borders and keeps the land safe. And so, everything was set in place. The end.